Picture yourself driving down a Texas highway. The sun beats down at 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Celsius, and tumbleweeds roll across empty main streets where businesses once thrived. Boarded up storefronts, for sale signs swaying in the hot wind, the faint echo of what used to be a bustling community. Think Texas is all about explosive growth and housing booms? Think again. While Dallas and Austin dominate headlines with their affordability crises and skyrocketing prices, something darker is unfolding in the shadows. Across the Lone Star State, entire communities are hemorrhaging residents. Home values are plummeting by double digits. And here's the kicker. We're talking about towns that just a few years ago were thriving. In 2025, Texas faces a housing crisis unlike anything you've imagined. But it's not what you think. This isn't about prices being too high. It's about entire cities becoming modern-day ghost towns, left behind as the Texas boom passes them by. Could your city be on this list? Stick around as we count down the 10 Texas cities where the American dream is turning into a real estate nightmare, and the for sale signs might never come down. Number 10, Claude, Armstrong County. Claude, a name that probably means nothing to you. And that's exactly the problem. Nestled in the Texas Panhandle along Highway 287, Claude sits at the crossroads of somewhere and nowhere. About 1,200 people call this place home, down from 1,307 just a year ago. That is 7% population drop in 12 months. Yikes. When your town loses nearly 1 in 10 residents annually, you're not experiencing a slowdown. You're watching an exodus. But here's what's really happening. Claude has everything a small town should need. A big grocery store, fire and ambulance stations, even 2 Airbnb spaces for the occasional traveler passing through. The mayor insists they're a thriving little community. Yet the numbers tell a different story. The median household income in Armstrong County hovers around $55,000, which sounds decent until you realize there's nothing to spend it on. No movie theater, no entertainment, limited health care beyond basic services. For young people graduating from Claude High School, the choice is simple. Stay in a town with no future, or chase opportunities in Amarillo, just 30 miles away. And speaking of Amarillo, here's what most people miss. Claude isn't dying in isolation. It's being actively drained by what demographers call an anchor city. Amarillo has the hospitals, the jobs at Texas Tech, the restaurants, the life that young families crave. Every kid who leaves for college and never comes back represents another nail in Claude's coffin. Every business that closes because there aren't enough customers accelerates the decline. According to the Texas Demographic Center, this is a phenomenon called brain drain. It's been plaguing rural communities since the early 2000s, and Claude is drowning in it, without amenities ranging from a simple pool to actual career opportunities. These towns risk driving away their younger populations forever. Claude might still have its charm, and those heirlooms for road trippers. But in 2025, it's fighting a losing battle against gravity itself. The pull of bigger cities is too strong. And for every person who leaves, the town becomes a little less viable for everyone who stays. It's a death spiral in slow motion. Number 9, Sweetwater, Nolan County. Sweetwater. The name sounds refreshing. The reality is anything but. Imagine a town that put all its economic eggs in 2 baskets, oil and wind. For a while, that diversification seemed smart. When oil boomed, Sweetwater prospered. When the push for renewable energy kicked into high gear, those massive wind turbines down in the West Texas landscape brought jobs and tax revenue. The best of both worlds, right? Not so fast. Let's break it down. Sweetwater has a population of around 10,700 residents, and by December 2025, Zillow forecasts home prices will drop by 6.9%. That might not sound catastrophic until you zoom out. The average home value in Sweetwater is already significantly lower than the Texas average of $307,629. When you're starting from a lower base and still dropping, you're in trouble. Now let's talk numbers. The oil and gas industry in Texas has been in turmoil throughout 2024 and 2025. Oil prices fluctuate wildly, and when they drop, towns like Sweetwater feel immediately. Jobs disappear. Workers pack up their families and head to more stable markets. Real estate listings pile up with no buyers in sight. The wind energy sector was supposed to be the safety net. Sweetwater even branded itself around wind power, hosting the annual Wind Power Conference. But here's the kicker. Wind energy employs far fewer people than traditional oil extraction. Those massive turbines? They practically run themselves once installed. A handful of technicians can maintain dozens of them. Then there's the deeper issue. The benefits of renewable energy aren't enough to offset the challenges in oil. According to recent housing market analyses, the projected decline suggests that Sweetwater's attempt at economic diversification has failed to create the stability the town desperately needs. When your two main industries can't support each other, you don't have diversification. You have double exposure. Average days on market for homes in Sweetwater have climbed above 70 days. That's more than double the rate in hot markets like Austin or Dallas. Sellers are getting desperate. Some are offering incentives. Others are dropping prices month after month, watching their equity evaporate. Sweetwater might still catch that West Texas wind. But in 2025, it's blowing residents right out of town, and the housing market is collapsing in its wake. When the wind stops and the oil runs dry, what's left? Number 8, Lamesa, Dawson County. Lamesa, the cotton capital that's unraveling. Drive through Lamesa in Dawson County, and you'll see vast stretches of agricultural land. Cotton fields as far as the eye can see. This town of about 8,600 residents built its identity on farming and oil, and for decades, that combination worked. But 2025 tells a different story. Here's a reality check. Lamesa's economy is heavily reliant on industries that are both volatile and declining. When cotton prices drop or drought conditions persist, farmers struggle. When oil prices tumble, the rig workers disappear. And unlike larger cities with diverse employment bases, Lamesa doesn't have much of a safety net. The housing market reflects this instability. Home prices in Lamesa are predicted to decline through 2025, mirroring patterns seen in other oil-dependent West Texas communities. The median home value sits well below $100,000, and it's still dropping. That's not affordability. That's desperation. With about 8,600 residents, Lamesa has lost population steadily over the past decade. The town's infrastructure, from schools to healthcare facilities, was built for a larger population. Now, maintaining those services with shrinking tax base has become nearly impossible. The local school district faces budget cuts. The hospital struggles to attract doctors willing to live in such a remote location. Let's talk about the cascade effect. When one industry weakens, others follow. The local diner loses customers because fewer oil workers are eating lunch. The grocery store reduces hours because foot traffic is down. The auto repair shop closes because there aren't enough cars on the road. It's economic dominoes, and every piece that falls takes others with it. Then there's the quality of life factor. Summer temperatures in Lamesa regularly exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius. There's no major shopping. Entertainment options are virtually non-existent. For young people, the choice between staying in Lamesa and moving to Lubbock just 60 miles away isn't really a choice at all. One of the most overlooked culprits is the lack of job diversity. According to employment data, a majority of Lamesa's jobs are concentrated in agriculture, oil and gas, and government services. When one sector tanks, there's nothing to catch the workers who fall. No tech sector, no manufacturing, no tourism industry. Lamesa might still produce cotton by the ton, but in 2025, it's producing something else in even greater quantities. Empty homes, lost dreams, and residents who can't leave fast enough. The cotton capital is coming apart at the seams. Number 7, Raymondville, Willacy County. Raymondville, the town that built its economy on detention and is now detained by decline. Picture this. A small South Texas town of about 10,000 residents, positioned as the gateway to the Rio Grande Valley. Sounds promising, right? Except that gateway is closing fast, and people are rushing through it in the wrong direction. Let's break it down. Raymondville's population peaked at 11,284 in 2010. By 2025, it's down to roughly 10,065. That's a 10.2% decline in just 15 years. But wait, it gets worse. The poverty rate in Raymondville sits at a staggering 31.47%. Nearly 1 in 3 residents lives below the poverty line. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the private prison industry. Raymondville became known for housing 3 major detention facilities, including centers for immigration detention. These facilities brought jobs and economic activity. But here's the kicker. When policies change, when facilities close, when federal contracts dry up, towns built on incarceration find themselves imprisoned by their own economic model. The median household income in Raymondville is just $42,148, compared to Texas's median of around $67,000. That's a massive gap. And with home values projected to drop by over 10% by early 2026, according to Zillow forecasts, homeowners are watching their largest investment crumble. The housing market data paints a grim picture. Average days on market have increased significantly. Sellers are desperate. Some homes sit for months with no offers. Others sell well below asking price, just to get out. Local realtors report that many residents are essentially trapped, unable to sell their homes for enough to afford moving costs to a more prosperous area. Then there's the hidden factor nobody talks about. Quality of life in Raymondville is severely limited. The town lacks major amenities. Healthcare is basic at best, and educational opportunities are constrained. The child poverty rate exceeds 45%. Think about that. Nearly half of all children in Raymondville grow up in poverty. According to census data, only 62.5% of adults over 25 have a high school diploma or equivalent. Just 6.7% have a bachelor's degree. That educational deficit creates a workforce that struggles to attract higher-paying employers. It's a vicious cycle. Low education leads to low wages, which leads to poverty, which leads to declining schools, which perpetuates low education. Even the Walmart closed down. In a small Texas town, losing your Walmart isn't just about shopping. It's a signal that the economic fundamentals have failed. Raymondville might still call itself a gateway. But in 2025, it's a gateway to economic despair, population loss, and a housing market that's circling the drain. The American dream isn't just deferred here. For many, it's dead. Number 6, Zapata County. Zapata, where the American dream goes to die on the banks of a reservoir. Nestled along Falcon Lake on the Texas-Mexico border, Zapata should be a paradise. Warm weather year-round, fishing opportunities, scenic water views. Instead, it's becoming one of Texas's most dramatic ghost town-in-the-making stories. Here's what's really happening. Zapata has seen its population plummet from 5,567 in 2020 to roughly 5,115 in 2025. That's an 8.12% drop in just 5 years. When nearly 1 in 12 residents disappears, you're not experiencing normal migration patterns. You're experiencing collapse. Let's talk about the numbers that keep people up at night. The median household income in Zapata is just $37,653. That's barely above the federal poverty line for a family of 4. And get this, the poverty rate sits at 30.26%. 3 in 10 residents can't make ends meet. The median property value is only $104,300, and Zillow forecasts suggest prices could drop another 7.2% by late 2025. Now, here's the deeper issue. Zapata County's economy relies heavily on government employment, border-related services, and oil and gas. 2 of those 3 sectors are unstable by nature. When federal funding shifts or oil prices crater, Zapata feels it immediately. Employment in the county declined by 17.7% from 2022 to 2023 alone. Yikes! The housing market tells a devastating story. With home prices already rock bottom and still falling, owners are trapped. You can't sell for enough to relocate. You can't refinance because the property value won't support it. Reports from local realtors reveal that many are essentially abandoning homes rather than continuing to pay for properties they can't unload. Then there's the quality of life factor. Summer temperatures regularly hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius. Air conditioning runs nonstop. driving up utility costs that low-income residents can't afford. Healthcare is limited to basic clinics. The nearest major hospital is over an hour away in Laredo. Educational opportunities are minimal, with test scores consistently below state averages. One of the most overlooked culprits is the border location itself. While proximity to Mexico should be an economic advantage, security concerns and cartel activity in the region have made Zapata less attractive to investors and new residents. Tourism potential remains largely untapped because visitors fear safety issues. According to demographic data, 93.9% of Zapata County's population is Hispanic, with 84.4% of Zapata residents being U.S. citizens. The percentage of foreign-born residents has been increasing, but these are often people with limited economic resources seeking affordable housing. They're not bringing investment capital or high-wage jobs. The median age in Zapata is just 31.5 years, which means this is a young population that should be building the future. Instead, they're fleeing. The educated leave for college and never return. The ambitious head to San Antonio or Corpus Christi. What remains is a community slowly draining of its vitality. Zapata might still have that lake view, but in 2025, the water is low, the economy is lower, and the future looks like a dry reservoir bed. This isn't a housing correction. It's a community evaporation. Number 5, Alice, Jim Wells County. Alice, the heart of South Texas that's having cardiac arrest. With a population of about 17,393, Alice is larger than most towns on this list. That makes its decline even more alarming. When a city of nearly 20,000 starts showing ghost town symptoms, you know the crisis runs deep. Let's break it down. Alice's population has declined by 2.6% since 2020, dropping from 17,857 to its current level. That might sound modest until you consider the trajectory. The city is currently declining at a rate of 0.53% annually, and that rate is accelerating. By early 2026, Zillow predicts home prices in Alice will drop by more than 10%. Now, let's talk dollars and cents. The median household income in Alice is $46,963. That's about $20,000 below the Texas state median. But here's the kicker. The poverty rate is 30.44%. Nearly 1 in 3 residents lives in poverty. When you combine low incomes with high poverty rates and falling home values, you create a perfect storm of economic distress. The housing market data is brutal. The average home value in Alice sits well below statewide averages, yet homes still linger on the market for extended periods. Days on market have increased significantly as buyers become scarce. Sellers are slashing prices month after month, often accepting offers 5 to 10% below listing just to escape. Alice's economy depends heavily on oil and gas, agriculture, and government services. All 3 sectors have experienced turbulence in recent years. The oil industry's boom-bust cycles have devastated employment. Agricultural jobs don't pay enough to support families. And government employment can't expand when the tax base is shrinking. Then there's the quality of life equation. Summer temperatures in Alice average around 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Celsius, with highs pushing well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius. The town lacks major amenities. Shopping means driving to Corpus Christi, 45 miles away. Entertainment is limited to high school football and local diners. For young professionals, Alice offers no career ladder to climb. One of the most overlooked culprits is the educational deficit. According to census data, educational attainment in Alice lags far behind state and national averages. Without a skilled workforce, Alice can't attract the higher-paying employers that could reverse the decline. It's another vicious cycle. Low education leads to low wages, which drives away the educated, which perpetuates the problem. Healthcare is another major issue. Alice has limited medical facilities for a town its size. The nearest comprehensive hospital system is in Corpus Christi. For elderly residents or families with health concerns, that distance creates real hardship. It's another factor pushing people to relocate. According to recent reports, many Alice residents are underwater on their mortgages. They owe more than their homes are worth. With prices falling another 10% or more, that situation worsens daily. These aren't strategic decisions to sell. These are acts of financial survival, and increasingly, residents are simply walking away. Alice might still be the seat of Jim Wells County, but in 2025, it's losing its seat at the table of Texas prosperity. When a city this size shows decline patterns typical of much smaller towns, the warning signs aren't just flashing. They're screaming. Number 4, Big Spring, Howard County. Big Spring. The name evokes life-giving water in a desert. The reality is a slow drought of people and prosperity. Welcome to West Texas, where oil built entire communities and now threatens to abandon them. Big Spring, with a population of about 28,000, is ground zero for what happens when a city's economic fate is chained to black gold, and that gold turns to dust. Here's what's really happening. Big Spring's economy is dominated by the oil and gas industry. When oil prices are high, Big Spring thrives. When prices crash, the town hemorrhages jobs and residents. According to Zillow forecasts, home prices in Big Spring are expected to drop by 11.7% by March 2026. That's among the steepest declines in the entire state. Let's talk about what 11.7% means in human terms. If you bought a home in Big Spring for $150,000 at the peak, it could be worth $132,450 by next year. That's $17,550 in lost equity. For many homeowners, that represents their entire down payment and years of principal payments simply evaporating. And the decline isn't slowing, it's accelerating. The median home price in Big Spring is around $185,000, which sounds affordable until you realize it's been steadily dropping for months. Average days on market have climbed to over 60 days. In a healthy market, homes sell in 30 days or less. When properties sit unsold for 2 months, it signals fundamental problems with demand. Now, here's the deeper issue. Big Spring, like Pecos and Sweetwater, is experiencing a boom-bust cycle on steroids. The difference this time is that the bust might be permanent. The oil industry is changing. Automation means fewer workers needed per well. Corporate consolidation means decisions made in Houston or Dallas, with little regard for small-town communities. And the global push toward renewable energy means long-term decline for oil-dependent towns. According to energy industry analysts, the Permian Basin will continue producing oil for decades. But the employment benefits will concentrate in larger cities like Midland and Odessa, not small towns like Big Spring. Those cities have the infrastructure, the services, and the amenities to attract corporate offices and skilled workers. Big Spring doesn't. Let's talk about the cascade effect. As oil jobs disappear, so do the ancillary businesses that support them. The equipment rental companies close. The restaurants lose customers. The hotels see occupancy rates plummet. The retail stores can't sustain themselves on a shrinking population. It's economic dominoes, and every piece that falls makes the next one more vulnerable. Then there's the quality of life factor. Big Spring sits in one of the hottest, driest parts of Texas. Summer temperatures routinely exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius. There's limited entertainment, few restaurants, and virtually no cultural amenities. For young professionals, especially those with families, the choice between staying in Big Spring and relocating to Midland or Lubbock is obvious. One of the most overlooked culprits is the aging infrastructure. Big Spring's roads, water systems, and public facilities were built for a larger population during previous boom times. Now, with a declining tax base, maintaining that infrastructure has become financially impossible. Potholes go unfilled, parks deteriorate, public services are cut. The visible decay becomes another reason for residents to leave. According to recent housing market data, inventory in Big Spring is climbing while buyer interest wanes. That supply-demand imbalance will only worsen. Prices will continue falling, trapping more homeowners underwater, creating more foreclosures and short sales, which will further depress prices. It's a death spiral with no clear exit. Big Spring might still pump oil from the ground, but in 2025, it's pumping out people faster than crude. And when the human capital flees, no amount of oil money can save a dying town. The spring has run dry. Number 3, Pecos, Reeves County. Pecos, where the Wild West meets the wild reality of economic collapse. Picture Pecos, vast desert landscapes, oil derricks on the horizon, and a town that time seems to have forgotten. With a population of about 13,000, Pecos sits in the heart of West Texas oil country. But in 2025, that location has become a curse rather than a blessing. Let's break it down with the most devastating number on this entire list. According to Zillow forecasts, Pecos is projected to experience a home price decline of 12.7% by March 2026. That's not a typo. Nearly 13%. In real estate terms, that's a catastrophe. Here's what 12.7% means for homeowners. A $150,000 house drops to $130,950. That's $19,050 in lost equity. For many families in Pecos, that represents their life savings, their retirement plan, their children's college fund. Gone. And the bleeding hasn't stopped. Now let's talk about why. Pecos is deep in West Texas, a region that has lived and died by oil prices for over a century. When oil prices soar, towns like Pecos boom. Trailer parks fill with rig workers. Hotels reach 100% occupancy. Local businesses thrive. But when oil crashes, the crash is total. Recent analyses from housing experts indicate the significant projected decline strongly suggests an anticipation of softening in the energy sector or a correction from a previous oil fuel price surge. The current situation is even more dire because oil prices have been volatile but relatively stable in the $70 to $80 per barrel range throughout 2024 and early 2025. That's not cheap enough to kill production, but it's not high enough to justify the massive workforce expansions that characterized previous booms. For Pecos, this means the boom never came back, but the bust never ended. Let's talk about the human impact. The median household income in Pecos is significantly below the state average. Poverty rates are high. Educational attainment is low. The town lacks the skilled workforce needed to attract diversified employers. When your entire economy depends on pulling one resource out of the ground, and that industry is in long-term decline, there's no plan B. The housing market in Pecos shows classic signs of distress. Inventory is piling up. Average days on market exceed 75 days. Sellers are accepting offers 10% or more below asking price just to get out. Some have simply stopped making mortgage payments and are waiting for foreclosure. Why pay for a house that's worth less than you owe and sits in a town with no future? Then there's the deeper structural issue. Pecos lacks the infrastructure and amenities that modern families expect. Healthcare is limited. Schools struggle with funding and teacher shortages. There's virtually no entertainment or cultural offerings. The nearest major city, Odessa, is 90 miles away. For residents, especially those with children, the isolation is suffocating. One of the most overlooked culprits is water. West Texas faces severe water scarcity issues. Oil and gas operations consume massive amounts of water through hydraulic fracturing. As the industry contracts, one might expect water availability to improve, but years of overuse have depleted aquifers. Agricultural operations struggle, and the long-term sustainability of the region itself is questioned. According to demographic data, Pecos is losing its youngest and most educated residents at alarming rates. High school graduates leave for college and never return. Young professionals take jobs in larger cities where their skills earn higher wages. What remains is an aging population with limited economic prospects and houses they can't sell. The oil industry transformation toward automation and consolidation means fewer workers needed overall, and those workers will concentrate in larger, more attractive cities. Pecos doesn't offer quality of life that can compete. No amount of oil money changes that. Pecos might still have its rodeo and its connection to the Old West. But in 2025, this isn't a cowboy movie with a happy ending. It's an economic horror story, and for the residents trapped in homes they can't sell, the nightmare is just beginning. When your home value drops 12.7% and there's no bottom in sight, you're not in a housing correction. You're witnessing a community collapse in real time. Number 2, Odessa, Ector County. Odessa, the oil capital that's running on fumes. Here's something most people don't realize. Odessa with a population of approximately 120,000, is one of the largest cities on this list, and that makes its struggles even more terrifying. When a city of over 100,000 starts showing the economic distress patterns we've seen in much smaller towns, you know the crisis has reached critical mass. Let's break it down. Odessa sits at the heart of the Permian Basin, America's most productive oil-producing region. For decades, when people talked about Texas oil, they were talking about Odessa. The city branded itself around the industry. Its economy, its identity, its very existence depends on one thing: black gold. Now, here's what's really happening in 2025. While Odessa hasn't seen the catastrophic housing price declines of smaller towns like Pecos or Big Spring, the warning signs are everywhere. The city is experiencing a fundamental transformation from boom to bust, and the housing market is beginning to reflect that shift. During the most recent oil boom from 2017 to 2019, Odessa's housing market went insane. Median home prices soared. Rental rates doubled. You couldn't find an available apartment for love or money. Hotel rooms in Odessa became among the most expensive in Texas, with rates exceeding those in Dallas or Houston. It was a sign of explosive demand meeting insufficient supply. But then came the crash. COVID-19 hit the oil industry like a sledgehammer. Prices plummeted. Rig counts collapsed from over 450 to fewer than 130 in a matter of weeks. Odessa shed 1/3 of its oil and gas jobs almost overnight. And here's the kicker: many of those jobs aren't coming back. Let's talk about the housing implications. During the boom, developers rushed to build apartments, hotels, and housing developments. They assumed the good times would last. They were wrong. By 2020 and 2021, Odessa had a massive oversupply of housing just as demand evaporated. Apartments sat empty. Hotels recorded single-digit occupancy rates. New housing developments stood vacant. According to local business leaders, there are going to be a lot of empty apartments. After the bust of the 1980s, when oil prices crashed, people fled Odessa en masse. Home prices in the area were depressed for decades, by one analysis remaining 44% below their 1983 values through 2006. Think about that. It took 23 years for the housing market to recover from the last major oil bust. Now, let's talk about 2025 specifically. While Odessa's population remains relatively stable compared to smaller towns, the quality of that stability is questionable. The city has seen an influx of lower-income residents seeking cheap housing, while higher-income professionals relocate to Midland or leave the region entirely. This demographic shift undermines the tax base and changes the community character. The median home price in Odessa is around $240,000, which seems healthy until you look beneath the surface. Inventory is rising. Days on market are increasing. Price appreciation has stalled. Sellers are offering concessions. These are early warning signs that the market is rolling over. Then there's the infrastructure crisis. Odessa's roads, especially in the oil patch area south of the city, are among the most dangerous in Texas. Traffic fatalities involving oil field trucks increased by 120% over a 3-year period. The schools are overcrowded, with some campuses housing 50% more students than they were designed for. The hospital system struggles to keep up with demand. One of the most overlooked culprits is the quality of life deficit. Odessa lacks the amenities of larger cities. Cultural offerings are limited. Green space is scarce. Entertainment options are minimal. For professionals, especially those relocating from other parts of Texas or the country, Odessa feels like hardship duty. People come for the paycheck, not the lifestyle. According to workforce development officials, employers have had to cast a wider net to attract workers. Housing availability is a problem. Wages in non-oil and gas jobs don't support the cost of living. Teacher shortages plague the school system. Healthcare professionals are hard to recruit. The city faces a brain drain that mirrors what's happening in smaller towns. The long-term outlook is even more concerning. The oil industry is automating rapidly. Fewer workers are needed to extract the same amount of oil. Corporate offices are consolidating in larger cities. The push toward renewable energy, while slow in Texas, is accelerating nationally and globally. Odessa's entire economic model is built on an industry in long-term decline. When you add it all up, Odessa in 2025 faces an existential question. What happens to an oil city when the world needs less oil? What happens when automation eliminates half the jobs? What happens when young people choose quality of life over paychecks? The answer, increasingly, is population decline, housing oversupply, and a slow march toward ghost town status. Odessa might still pump oil by the millions of barrels, but in 2025, it's pumping out hope, ambition, and residents who see the writing on the wall. When a city of 120,000 shows the same distress signals as towns 1/10 its size, you're not looking at local problems. You're looking at a statewide crisis that's just getting started. Number 1, Midland County. Midland, the corporate headquarters of the Texas oil empire. And in 2025, it's the biggest ghost town surprise on our entire list. Wait, you're thinking. Midland? The city with skyscrapers? The place where George W. Bush grew up? The economic engine of West Texas? How could Midland possibly be turning into a ghost town? Let me explain, and trust me, this is where everything comes together. Here's what's really happening. Midland, with a population of approximately 145,000, is the corporate heart of the Permian Basin. When oil companies make decisions, they make them in Midland. When executives fly into West Texas, they land in Midland. The city has ExxonMobil offices, Chevron facilities, and dozens of major energy companies headquartered downtown. This isn't some small town dependent on a few drilling rigs. This is the capital of Texas oil. And that's exactly why it's number 1 on our list. Let's break down the numbers. At the height of the recent boom in 2018 and 2019, Midland's median home price hit $311,000, exceeding every Texas city except Austin. Read that again. Midland, a city in the middle of the desert, had higher home prices than Houston, Dallas, or San Antonio. Apartments rented for $2,000 a month for a basic one-bedroom. Hotel rooms cost $300 a night. It was the most expensive real estate market in Texas relative to local incomes. But here's the kicker. According to Zillow forecast for 2025, Midland is experiencing a housing market correction, while projections show an initial increase of